to join us and appreciate all the work that you're doing out there. I'm going to start with some updates. We do not have any special guests today, so we'll probably be spending more time on COVID and background checks and just general updates. Just a reminder, if you are closing your facility, even temporarily for COVID, please report that to your licensing staff. That helps all of us keep up with, we're tracking closures and openings and reporting that out. And I just want to make sure that that is getting to the right staff so that our numbers and data are correct. I'm reporting to the legislature and governor and here in the agency. So it's very important that that information be accurate. And then when you reopen, if you will let them know. I think most of that's happening, but I know there's a lot going on out there. So just a reminder. Some updates to where we are in the pandemic. As of yesterday afternoon, we had 1,877 facilities that were open. I do think there are probably some that have reopened that are not on this list. That's why I'm asking you to make sure you let your licensing staff know. The capacity for that number is 160,140 children. As far as our positives in childcare and early childhood education, I'm sure it won't be a surprise to many of you that that number is increasing exponentially by the day, just as it is in the state for numbers. We currently have 488 children that have tested positive since March and 767 staff. So that's a cumulative. A little over 100 are active cases, so in the past 2 weeks. But I will let you know that we are seeing, just like the state is seeing increases, it's certainly having an impact on our world. I'm also seeing more closures occurring as well in childcare, probably as much in family childcare because it's much more difficult for family childcare homes to stay open. But we are seeing some centers who opt to close. And I think they're just out of an abundance of caution doing that. But we are starting to see a few more facilities make that decision temporarily when they do have a positive case. We have, in terms of the CARES funding, this is not regular child care development block grant funding. This is only the one-time funding through the CARES Act. We have given early care and education programs $30.2 million. So the bulk of that has been in sanitation and one-time payments for cleaning supplies and PPE equipment. We have completed that portion. We had allocated, I believe, $9 million, and we have spent just a little over that. And so we have completed that out of the CARES funding. The supplemental voucher payments out of CARES funding is also exhausted. We are continuing low income through December 12th. I do want to make sure everyone is aware today that that too will end on December 12th because we do not have adequate funding to continue. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that December 12th will be the last period for payments for supplemental regular low income vouchers. If we continue, we will have no funding to pay for regular low-income children. So if Congress allocates additional CARES funding, which is an unknown at this point, that will change this equation. But as of today, I want to make sure that everyone in the field is aware and is preparing for that. The essential workers will bill through December 31st, and that will exhaust that funding as well. So the only funding that we will have remaining after December 31st will be deep cleaning for positive cases. We do still have a little over 2 million in that category. So just encourage providers who have had to close and have an agency that have come in and cleaned or sanitized for your facility to send those invoices so that we can help you offset that cost and help you with that. So we do have funding there. And I anticipate we'll have that funding, probably through the early part of the year, as we still have quite a bit there. And the amounts are different across the state, as you can imagine. The companies charge different amounts. So those invoices can be sent to deepcleaning@dhs.arkansas.gov. I'm going to let the licensing staff, we have been working with the licensing regs over the past few weeks through a promulgation. It's primarily cleanup. So I'll let Ashlyn and Kelly talk about that. We're also going to spend a few minutes on central background checks or just criminal background checks and background checks to get a feel for that. Before I switch gears to those things, I want to let you guys know that I know this is an unprecedented time for all of us. It is equally unprecedented here in state government. We have had to close offices here on 2 occasions and send people home to work for cleaning. For my division, that's not for the agency. It's happening almost daily in the agency. County offices are closing. So it's very stressful. I've had to remind my staff, we do not meet in person at all. We have to meet remotely. We can't have face-to-face meetings. Everything we can do to minimize. And as we go into the coming weeks and the holidays, it's only going to get potentially worse. So, you know, to protect our loved ones, we all need to be considerate of all those things all the time. So encourage your staff to continue to wear their mask as much as they can in the building. When they're with other staff, when they're with children, it really actually does help with the transmission, improving the ability for people not to transmit this horrible virus. And I know everyone's watching the numbers continue to grow. The numbers of hospitalizations and the number of deaths equally grow. So it's really an unprecedented time. And I do want to thank you all for your work. I also want to talk just for a moment, as Ashlyn and several of my staff have been at the Capitol, not just on promulgation for licensing, but also for budget hearings. I was over this morning for personnel. And I want to share with you that all of us have a role to play with our early childhood work. I'm limited in what I can do as a state employee, but we're all advocates in some ways for our field. And so one thing I will tell you, and it's been my experience over the years, is if we work together, we accomplish a lot more. When we are divided and we aren't working as a team, then we usually don't accomplish a lot. So I encourage you as a field to work together. We have a wonderful Arkansas Early Childhood Association that does a lot of advocacy work. Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families has also been a tremendous partner for us in the past, and they do a lot of advocacy work. I just want to kind of encourage you to do that for a variety of reasons. It improves your numbers, you're consistent in your message. So I just really want to encourage you to work that way. Also work with your child care aware partners in your communities. We fund a small portion of those child care aware agencies, but they also can too be a voice for early care and education. I want to spend a few minutes talking about budget hearings. I did not hear, and any of my staff can correct me, but I did not get the impression there is some huge amount of money for the state that's going to be given out. They're asking agencies to cut. So fortunately, my budget is predominantly federal funding. 98% of the budget here in my division is federal. I get very little general revenue. The federal funds have very strict requirements attached to them, both for child nutrition and commodities, as well as our child care block grant. I want to make sure that folks in our field are familiar enough with this. The child care block grant, outside of the CARES funding that we got, that has allowed us to pay for families that were above the income, the actual child care block grant does not allow us to pay for any child over the income. In fact, we would be in violation of federal laws. And there's nothing outside of having Congress change that. And I've never seen anything that to indicate that Congress would be interested in changing that, because there are so many low-income children in the world, in our state, in the nation. So I don't see that happening. But that would take a congressional change, not a legislative change here in Arkansas. It's federal funding. So I just want to make sure folks are aware of that. Again, work together as a team. I'm going to pitch the baton over to Kelly and Ashlyn to talk both about the licensing reg changes, very minimal, mostly cleanup, and then background check. And then I'm going to keep an eye on the chat box. I know several of you put questions in.
Thank you, Tanya. Before we get there, if it's okay, I know that Kelly has some updates from the hotline that she wanted just to make sure that we got out to providers. And then Kelly, also, if you want to just go over the pandemic procedures too, because we updated those just to make sure everybody knows. So Kelly, you'll be up first, and then I'll go over the general requirements that we had the updates to, and I'll do the background check too. All right, Kelly.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm at the hotline this morning. It's pretty quiet right now, but you might hear some background noise soon. So a couple of things I wanted to mention. One, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. I also want to ask you to do me a favor, to do all of us at the division a favor, and that is ask your colleagues to join us, because as I look at the numbers, we only have 84 people on this call today. And we really, really, really want to get all this information out to everyone. So I really hope that we can, you guys can help us and ask all of your colleagues around you to join us. It's every other week, and I feel like we share important information. So on to my updates here. So at the hotline, just this morning, I've taken 2 calls before 10 o'clock this morning where we had staff members at facilities that worked for an entire week with symptoms. So I'm going to ask you, please, 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 and get the word out again to your colleagues as well. If someone comes in and says they think they have allergies, send them home, because that's the type of symptoms that we're seeing, where people are saying, well, I just have allergies, and they're working all week and then it's not getting better. So on Friday they go get tested and they've spent the whole week infecting everyone they come into contact with at the facility. So let's see. Also, another update from the call center is that they're no longer getting their release letters from the health department on the back end. They get those on the front end. So when they get a positive test, they get a letter from the health department that says, this is this person's expected release date, depending on their symptoms. So you won't be seeing that letter that says they've been released, but you're going to, again, trust that they're following the instructions on that letter regarding their symptoms. And then I'm putting in the chat box over here a link to the form I just put in there that you fill out when you call the hotline. So if you could have that form as much as you can, we can help answer any questions you have about the form when you call. But please have that ready and have that filled out as much as you can when you do call us, so that will help as well. Okay, and then pandemic requirements. So I'm going to look while I got you on here. And
Hey, Kelly, can I interrupt you 1 second? I also know that you were talking to me about the holidays and the hotline and how that's going to impact the calls. Can you let everybody know that? I don't remember off the top of my head what they're supposed to do.
Sure, just a reminder that no one will be answering on those state holidays. So Thanksgiving Day, the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. And there won't be someone from the school hotline here, so they will return calls on the next business day.
So they're supposed to go ahead and call in. Providers are supposed to go ahead and call in and leave a message, and then that call will be returned to them.
You can do that. It'll roll over to a line where they will take a message, and then someone will call you back just as soon as they get back to work.
Okay, so the expectation is that they still report those in, even though it might
Yes.
be a holiday when they learn something. They still need to report it in, either calling in and letting it roll over, leave a message, or calling the next day after the holiday.
Right. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Definitely still report in. Okay, so I just put the pandemic requirements in the chat box as well. We just did a few updates to those. One kind of clarified on the screening questions about, it used to say if they've been in contact with someone in the last 14 days, and now it's that tested positive. Now it says have had a positive test for COVID in the past 10 days or awaiting the results, and then has been in close contact with someone who has had a positive diagnosis of COVID, and the close contact has not yet completed their required quarantine. Okay, so that kind of clarified that. I thought there was one other small change on there.
So there was one, Kelly, where they the Department of Health really suggested that the groups on the playground and in the cafeteria.
That's what it was. And that, yeah, individual groups should not be combined with other groups in common areas such as playgrounds or cafeterias. So again, we've had a call. In fact, I think this morning someone took a call where because they had been combined out on the playground, even though they were keeping that group size of 10 in the classroom, they ended up having to quarantine more close contacts. Okay, and I think from a Department of Health standpoint or pandemic standpoint, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate you doing the call center for us and for the providers as well. Okay, let's move on then just for a minute and let's think of a time in our brain where COVID wasn't here. And we just have our regular minimum licensing requirements that we always follow. That's what I'm going to talk to you about now. We did have some updates to that. They are very minor. But we did want to let you know about it, and we are anticipating that the new copies would be available to us hopefully January, 1st of January. We'll be able to have those posted to the website. And so 4 changes total. The first one was in section 102.6. So 102.6, the way it currently reads, it talks about falsification of information and excluded providers all in the same reg. So the change is that those 2 things are now going to be listed separately. So all it did is provide clarification really. The wording in and of itself did not change. So what is just important to know, and I'm sure no one on this call would ever do this, but falsification of information to DCC ECE, whether by you submitted it or by omission, it was grounds for a revocation of your license. And then the second part of that is if you are an excluded provider per the DHS policy 1088, then you may not be a license holder. So like I said, the information has always been there in section 102.6. It's just busted out now and it makes it more clear. The third change, so those were 2 changes together. The third change, you guys will remember this in the licensing manual where it said, for instance, with ratios is the one Kelly and I always use, but where it talks about ratios and from 2014 and it said you have 5 years to comply with this, and that was like 2019 and we're past that date. So it's things like that where the dates that were just arbitrary now or out of date, those were just removed from the manual. And along that same lines, instead of numbers being just like the number 3, now it's the actual number spelled out. So just formatting type of issues and grammatical issues along with the removal of dates. And then the fourth one is a new one, and this impacts our guys that are out of school licensees. So out of school time licensees will now need to maintain immunization records or the exemption from the Department of Health on any children they have enrolled in out of school time setting. And you guys, that's to comply with our CCDF block grant requirements. So that's why we needed to add that one in. So again, very minor changes, but we did want to let you know about that. We're hoping that we can get the new copies, the new rules posted up to our website. We'll definitely keep you posted on these calls when that happens, but hopefully we'll see it around January. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit to background checks. And Justin Foster's so nice. He has joined us on this call just in case we had any questions that I couldn't answer or our background team couldn't answer. So he's available to us. The biggest thing that we did want to say today before we took questions though is regarding the INA subscription account reimbursement. So you'll remember that Tanya announced on our last call that we will be reimbursing your $150 subscription fee one time only. So please hear me say one time only is what we have budgeted. And so if you want to participate in that and be reimbursed for your $150 subscription cost to INA, then you will need to send your invoice. So the invoice needs to be the one where you paid the $150. We've received some other invoices, but the one we need is the one that shows you paid $150, and you will send that. If somebody can type this in the chat box for me, it's INA receipts at dhs.arkansas spelled out.gov. So it's INA receipts at dhs.arkansas.gov. Thank you, Paige. She's popped it in the chat box for us. That is the email address that you will send your invoice to. So it would be so helpful in the body of that email if you will put all of your identifying information and not just the invoice. That'll save time for our family support team who's going to be handling this project for us. So if you will put your facility name, your facility number, your address, and the contact person, if that's you, or if there's a director that you want the contact person to be, that would be fantastic if you could put that in the body of the email address, attach the copy of your invoice from INA showing that you paid your $150. And then we're asking that you just understand that we are working as fast as we can on all things. This will be one of them. So if you can give us 4 weeks to process that, so 4 weeks processing time before you call in or email in to check on it, we're hoping to get it done and in the queue in that amount of time. Okay, so one clarification there, because we've received also just a few, not very many, but requests from providers about paying the fee of the background check itself. Remember, this is only for the subscription cost. So this is not the fees for running the state criminal check or the FBI check. It's not that. It's only for the subscription cost. All right. So with that, I think, Tanya, we're ready to do questions.
Ashlyn. So I'm going to just go back up. There are a couple of things that have been posted in the chat box. So I wanted, Andrea Baird, thank you for your comment. And I can only imagine what it's like out there for you all with staffing. Just want to encourage you to also reach out to your licensing staff as they may be able to help you. My concern is if you're not working with us, that the health department might end up closing you down. So be very careful about how you handle that. I think we can work with you on how you could combine healthy children as long as they don't need to be quarantined. So somebody in licensing, please look at Ms. Baird's question there with staffing needing to be out due to illness. How do we combine classrooms? And it's a very fair question, and I get it, in order to keep things staffed appropriately as your numbers are dropping. So please, and I do know that Ms. Slayton, Ms. Robin Slayton, encouraged her to join their group, but just want to make sure you're working with licensing, as the health department is really the lead on the pandemic, and we work with them to make decisions. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. So I don't know, Kelly, if there's anything you want to say to that, but Andrea, if your licensing staff can work with you, or if Kelly can reach out to you.
Yeah, I would definitely say call. Sorry, can you guys hear me with this mask on?
Yes.
Okay, call your licensing specialist with each situation, and they will get with their supervisor and with Ashlyn and with me, and we discuss, ways to help you figure that out for your specific situation. We're happy to take those calls and provide technical assistance as much as we can. And your licensing specialist know your facility layout and everything, so you might be able to come up with some good suggestions.
Thanks, Kelly. And Tiffany, I know you said that you had sent in your INA receipt by mail. That's fine. No reason, unless you just want to email it. I hate to ask you guys to do one more thing. So we'll have it. It will get here. So if we have any questions, we'll let you know. But if you've mailed it, we'll be on the lookout for that.
Hey, Tanya, can I interrupt 1 second? I failed to mention, you guys, you might start hearing NIC instead of INA. Those are the same things. The timing is not the best, but the company has changed its name. Everything else, though, is the same. So the subscription account phone numbers that you've contacted before, the help desk that you've contacted before, that information is the same. But I just wanted to let you know, in case you start hearing this different acronym, NIC, that is INA. Thank you, Tanya.
Okay, so, and I just appreciate all of you for your candor and really putting the hard stuff out there. I see one from Kristen Bean. If I get your name wrong, I apologize. Staffing is a huge problem with new hire background check weight requirements. there shouldn't be a weight requirement with the automation. So Ashlyn, if you can, I know that there's been a little hiccup as people adjust to a big change and how things get done. But if you guys are waiting for more than a week on background checks, we need to know about that, because the automation should be taking care of that unless there's a problem with the employee. I mean, that could be the problem, but you should be able to look in the system and see what's happening, and you should be getting results or updates in INA or NIC as it is called now. So, and Tiffany, I really appreciate that comment. Kelly and Ashlyn, I mean, I'm not really exactly sure I know what that means, but with TA no longer existing with licensing specialists, I'm not aware that it doesn't exist. I see many things that get TA'd still. So we may need to just clarify, you know, we may need to work with you offline, Tiffany, but I want to make sure everybody knows that TA is still something that we are very much beholden to here in the Division of Child Care and Early Childhood Education. So we want you to work with our staff, but I appreciate that honesty and people are afraid. So Kelly and Ashlyn, please make sure you make a note of that. And we definitely want to reassure people. Our goal here is to keep everyone safe and to help you all in the very best way that we can. So, but thank you, Tiffany, for putting that in. So Chris has asked Kelly to talk a little bit more about the pandemic procedures. So, and let me just remind everyone, because I know this gets a little bit complicated and it's very stressful for all of us right now. The health department works with us when there needs to be procedural changes. So these aren't my staff deciding what we're going to do. So I just want to make sure that you know that. The doctors and health professionals at the Arkansas Department of Health, you know, when they see things happening, and that's why there are changes sometimes, when they see the expansion of things, or when they get a lot of questions about things, or they see that something might be causing a problem within the pandemic procedures, they will let us know, hey, we may need to make these changes. So I know that many of you recall that we've had health staff on our call. And so I know they reached out to Kelly and we updated the pandemic procedures at their requirements. So Kelly, can you talk a bit about 5D?
Yeah, let me look at that one real quick. So 5D is on your screening criteria. It says do not allow any individual listed about to enter the facility if they meet any of the following criteria. And D is has been in close contact with someone who has a positive diagnosis of COVID and the close contact has not yet completed the required quarantine after the close contact with a positive person. So what that means is, if I have close contact with someone who has a positive diagnosis, I have to quarantine for 14 days from that last date of contact. I haven't completed my quarantine. I don't need to be coming into your child care facility. That's what that means. Is that hopefully more clear?
We'll keep going, Kelly, hopefully. And if it doesn't, if you all want to reach out to Kelly specifically to talk through that. For those, so I just want to, I'm going to go switch back for just a second to vouchers. So for those who are asking questions about vouchers, let me see if I can help clarify. The supplemental payments that we're making are scheduled to end on December 12th. We will continue to serve low-income voucher families. That is not going to change. So you may continue to submit families. We will continue to authorize. What we can't continue to do is pay the supplemental amounts for any families after December 12th. Because if we continue to pay for the supplemental amounts, that's the extra $10, the extra, sorry guys, somebody is trying to reach me, and the extra $5. So that is what's ending December 12th. But the low income vouchers for families that are eligible, and if you have any families that you think are eligible, or if you have any essential worker families that may be eligible, please send them to the low income process so that we can process them now and get them added. We will continue to serve low income families. That's what that fund is for specifically. So I do see the note. I think this is about maybe licensing, Kelly. It's just a comment about immediate solutions. So we will take a stab at that and see if we can't work up a solution for that. We do have some staff that we are reorganizing a little bit, and maybe we can have one of them be available to take calls. But let us work on that, Allison, and maybe we can come up with a solution, because I hear what you're saying and I understand. I see a comment that maltreatment is what's taking some time, possibly. For those of you who weren't on the call last time, please be aware that the Division of Children and Family Services has automated their maltreatment checks. And so there is a new automated process for those, and it is much faster. It's all streamlined. So that should help with that time, but you are right. It does, they were sent in via mail and they were processed in that unit. So just wanted you to be aware of that.
Tanya, the out-of-state ones are what's taken so long. So if somebody hasn't been in Arkansas for 5 years, that's really the delay on any maltreatment. And I don't think there's anything that Arkansas can do about that.
Yeah, Jenny, thank you. You're absolutely correct. We do have to reach out to the other state. We probably need to look. It's my understanding, Ashlyn, and you guys correct me, but it's my understanding from CCDF that we have to document that we've made the effort so that we could, in fact, have someone begin working. But anyway, if that helps any.
Yes.
But you have to be able to document that you had made the effort, Jenny. So if there's some confusion about that, Ashlyn, correct me if I'm wrong about that.
You're right. So the responsibility is, it's a team effort. It's on the provider, you guys, but it's also on Nora's team, on our team. Like the provider has to show that they initiated it and tried it. So just as a reminder on these out of state, you guys, the minute you know that you want to hire somebody who has lived out of state, you need to get working on the Central Registry Maltreatment form. On that form is where you're going to list all the residents or the addresses that they've had for the last 5 years, including the out of state. That'll be what triggers Nora's team to look at and to know, okay, we've got somebody from out of state. The provider, then Nora's team can help you and get you in the right direction. So as an example, let's use Texas, because we see a lot of Texas people. Okay, so what would happen is Nora can get you in the right direction on who the applicant needs to contact in Texas. But Texas then has to submit whatever that information is directly to Nora's team. And Tanya, that is what's the struggle, is that some states are fast about getting the information out. Some states don't do it at all, don't have a central registry system. Some states get to it when they can because they're processing their own in-state requests. And so we have to document that both the provider attempted and that Nora's team attempted before we can take any action on doing an overall approved status. So just remember, for us, for childcare people, and this is not true if you've got friends that are in the residential world, this is not true what I'm about to say, but for you guys, as long as you have back your state criminal, then you can work, your person can work provisionally. As long as you've got the provisional on your applicant, then you guys can start work with those guys being under supervision, but they can start work at least. So we do know if you've got any, we do know that it's taken a while on those. So if you've got out of state that you feel like you've given it a reasonable amount of time and you haven't heard an update, then go ahead and call and let Nora know. And then she and her team, she's got a team of people on it. They can try to reach out and see what is going on with it. So out of state is a little bit of a struggle right now.
So Ashlyn, there's a couple of questions, starting with Lindsay Sanders. How do we get access to the finalized background checks? I know it's in the portal. Can you?
Yes, ma'am. I can answer that one. So you guys, you have your INA subscription accounts. And so that is how you will find out all of your information. So as an example, and Justin, please, if I get this wrong, you jump in there. So as an example, if Tanya, so I'm Tanya's employee. So Tanya has gotten into her INA system and she has initiated a request on me. And so she sends that all via electronic and system-based, all this stuff that happens in the background. And the state police say, yes, Ashlyn Abney is clear. She doesn't have anything on her state background check. That information is handled then by Nora's team. So Nora will list Ashlyn Abney as provisional. Once that happens, an email is generated to you guys, the provider. Now that email does not give you any information other than you've got a status change in your account. So when you get the email that says you've had a status change, you need to log on to your INA subscription account and look at your statuses. And you should see Ashlyn Abney has been okay to do provisionally work. Now then, the FBI and the maltreatment is still working, and Nora and her team are still responsible for getting that information together as well. So when my FBI check comes back on me, and when my central registry comes back on me, then Nora's team will give what's called an overall approved. And so then Tanya, in this case, would get an email as my employer. She would get an email that says, there's been a status change in your account. So she would log onto the system, she'll pull up Ashlyn Abney, and she'll see that I have an overall approved. So all the information is coming to you via your INA subscription account.
So I'm seeing a number after that question, comments that really it's criminal background checks and FBI that are taking a long time, which is surprising me a little bit. Justin, anything that we can share? I mean, I know this is a big change. Maybe it's going into the account and it's getting familiar enough to know that that's where your staff, you're not going to get an email from us. You're actually going to get an email and it's going to be in that portal that tells you the change. So you all may have the information, but I don't know that. If you're checking that account daily or what frequency you're checking it, you should know if your employees have cleared criminal and FBI. But you can start them working if you have one of those back, you can start your employee provisionally. That shouldn't hold you up if you have that provisional. Like Ashlyn said, at some point you're going to get like everything's cleared. But you can start them provisionally just with FBI or state criminal.
Yeah, so we have identified an issue that was affecting us. ASP was blocking some of the transactions coming from our print scan hardware. We have remedied that issue, but if you have any outstanding transactions that still say, I believe it's FBI sent to Harvester, I believe, and maybe Nora or Brenda can correct me on that. But if it's in that status, that means that the machine that you had the fingerprints done on sent the data or attempted to, and then it got blocked. And so what's happening then is that we're having to reach out to our print scan vendor to manually resubmit those over to ASP. So make sure you reach out to Ashlyn or Paige's, Nora, Brenda, whoever is on that team that you're reaching out to, and so they can get with me or someone on my team so we can reach out and get those resolved.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate you. There was another comment. Let me go back out. So there's a comment from Kayla Miller that she still has some that were mailed in before October 1, Ashlyn, and they're waiting on those results. Now, those are probably a little more time consuming because of the paper, but any status on the mail-ins?
So the only mail-ins that we are taking now are the ones that we had started prior to October 1. And generally speaking, there was something wrong with the paperwork. And so we are in the trying to send them back, get them back from providers. So and then that also, by the way, if you're still doing, or if you had some prior to October 1 that you're working on paper, you guys, then there is also a delay over on the state police side as well. So for those, I would say if you've got any, especially the paper ones that you have not heard back from since October, reach out to Brenda Berg, Nora Fawcett. They should be at least able to tell you like the status of it. So that's the best bet there, I believe.
So Ashlyn, Chastity Parker has asked to clarify what the criminal FBI should read when the employees are able to work under direct supervision and what it should read when they're eligible to work. Can you kind of describe what that should look like for the providers?
Yes, ma'am. So in your INA subscription count, if you're seeing provisional, if you see provisional by any of your applicants' names, then that means there's some part of their background check that's not back yet. Most of the time when you see a provisional, it's because the state check has come back. It's the one that comes back the quickest, the fastest. Once you get a provisional, and I did see the comments about it's not very helpful to have a provisional when you're trying to get staffed. And I understand that. The way the law is, the person can work under supervision when it's provisional. That's the way it is, guys. So when you see an overall approved, that's what you're looking for, overall approved. That means all three of the checks have come back. The state's back, the FBI is back, and the central registry is back, and the person is good to go without any supervision. So provisional, supervision, overall approved, no supervision needed.
I'm saying thank you for those of you, Randy and Allison Griffin. Thank you all for complimenting Brenda Burr. I don't know if Brenda's on, but thank you, Brenda, for your service to these folks. Appreciate that. And if you're having problems, it sounds like reach out to Brenda. There are other staff, but Brenda looks like she's really helping a lot of you work through that. Just based on the comments we're getting, we may do another preview on our next call. I think that would probably be timely. The problem is if only a few of you are on it, it isn't going to help. So if those of you who are really struggling, or we can set up a separate training, and I'm happy for us to do that. I'm seeing lots of folks say they're struggling with where they get the information. So if we need to schedule a training for that, just to walk you guys back through how you read it and interpret it, we're happy to do that. That's really what we want to do, is help you. So I'm going to switch for just a second. I'm seeing some about vouchers and low income vouchers. So I'm seeing one about the completion of the essential voucher funding on December 31st. Parents are asking about applying for low income. With the documentation of the families already on file, yes, Takeda, they do have to submit. The applications are completely different. We do have income requirements for low income, and those are very strict federal rules and guidelines. And if we don't do it right, we will risk losing federal funding. So they do have to submit a low income voucher. Brandy, if you can paste that link in for those who may have families who are eligible, she will put that in the chat box, and then you guys can have your families fill out regular low income voucher applications. I understand they fill out something, but we didn't take any income on the essential workers. That was not a requirement. So if they are possibly eligible for low income, we'll need to run a normal low income application. And Brandy will put that in, Kristen, on where those need to be sent. There's a question about temperatures regarding pandemic, Kelly or Ashlyn, about where those need to be recorded.
But that's the one about whether they had to document the actual temperature or could just document that that they did not have a fever. And I think, yeah, I don't think that you have to document the actual temperature as long as you document that it was checked and who checked it and that they did not have a fever.
Okay, did everybody get that? I know Kelly is working in an area where she needs to keep her mask on to be safe, but she is saying that you do not have to actually record the actual temperature. You may record that it's been checked and who took that temperature. The parent fee for families that are required to pay a fee. I believe, Takeda, and we can announce this on the next call, I believe that we will continue to waive that, but I will double check with the staff, and we may need to talk to the federal folks in Dallas. So just, if you guys can hold on that. As far as I know, we will continue to waive it, but we probably just need to double check on that one. And we can announce that on the December 1st call or on our next call. And I did put in the chat box, I know several of you had asked about the dates. We have one scheduled for the December 1st, and then 2 weeks from that on Tuesday. We will not have one on December 29th. If you have, okay, Elizabeth, you asked a question. If they have not paid the invoice, they will not be able to process background checks. You have to pay the INA account in order for you to process background checks. We will reimburse once that has been paid and they submit that invoice. But it's the only way we can do the reimbursement. We looked at a lot of options, but the only place where we actually have funding that will allow us to reimburse you is to do it this way. And I apologize for that. That's the only way. I worked with finance and INA, NIC, and this is the only way. In order for us to be able to pay, it has to be a reimbursable because it's coming out of one part of the division's account that's set up to do that. And we don't have any other account. And thank you, Cassidy Harrison. The automated child maltreatment check is awesome. I will make sure Mission Martin and DCFS know that. They're very excited about being able to offer that to you all and starting with our division first, and are going to have many more people, I think, that are going to appreciate that. I thank you for posting. Yes, these calls are recorded. So if your colleagues can't get on, continue to point them to the website so that they can maybe listen at their convenience. I think we've answered the copay. We'll get you an answer on the next call. And if you need something before then, please reach out to Brandy Ishman in the child care voucher unit. And I'm thinking that we will continue that waiving of the fee, but we will get you an official answer. I appreciate the comment, Allison, about the provisional. Unfortunately, that is a federal law. That is a federal requirement. That's not a state requirement, and we can't waive that. Yes, and you do have to subscribe, do the INA subscription if you need to do background checks. And as soon as you pay that, you can submit your invoice immediately for repayment by us. Elizabeth, your question about vouchers and payments for parents who are positive or quarantined, I'm hoping Brandy is responding to that one. That's a very specific question. So Brandy, if you can take a look at Elizabeth Scudder's question about paperwork for payment for children that are out due to a parent. I know there is a process that she's already posted or pasted into the chat box. Yeah, Kristen, I know the provisional is a problem. We can certainly ask the feds for any, or we can look at what some other states are doing. If anybody's doing anything more creative than we are, I'm not aware that there's been any ability for us to go outside of that, but we will check on that. That is really a federal law. So, but we will check. Thank you guys. I see lots of comments that is not working. So we will certainly go to our federal partners and see if there's a different option. Okay, Justin, there was the question. It sounded like the one that you had talked about. It's one that read the FBI Harvester. So can you remind them what they need to do if they're getting that message?
Yeah, so if that message is showing up for anyone, please reach out to the background check team with DCCEC and let them know. They'll need the transaction ID specifically. Once we have that information, we can reach out to our print scan vendor who can then manually resubmit that for us. As I said, we have worked with ASP and we believe we've worked out the issue where their servers were blocking our requests. So hopefully this issue will stop happening in the near future.
And Justin, just to be clear, she would not have to redo her fingerprints.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have the prints. They're stored on what PrintScan calls a store and forward server. So if we ever run into an issue, we can manually resubmit those without having the applicant come back in.
Okay, thank you. So Heather, your question about staff's fingerprints that were rejected and then a second set were done. Definitely, Ashlyn, if you guys can put the best contact for that in the chat box for Heather Level to reach out to, or any of these folks to reach out to. And Randy keeps saying Brenda Barr. Thank you, Randy. Put Brenda's number in here somewhere.
Yes, Brenda, listen, you guys, I appreciate those comments so much because when I tell you, Nora and her team have been doing their dead level best, like getting here so early in the morning, staying late in the evening, doing their very best to get the answers that you guys ask of them or to get the things processed. They have been working so hard. So I appreciate that so much. Listen, the bottom line answer is if you have any questions about your background checks, these are the people that you can email and or call, and I've added them all in the chat box, so you can scroll back there, or as I'm talking, if somebody wants to add it just one more time. So Brenda is the supervisor over in the background check unit. Nora is the program manager over the unit. Paige Cox is the person who has a lot of things, but also the background check part. And then I am the next one in that line. Any of us, if you email us or you call us, we will get it right back to the right place and hopefully get you an answer. Just know, and you can tell, and there's only like maybe 100 of you guys on here, and we have, 2,000 licensed facilities. Just know the volume that we're working with right now is pretty heavy. And we will make it, you guys, just like you will make it, we will make it. And so just give us a little grace and kindness about getting back with you, but we absolutely will get back with you. So any of us can help with any background check. So email probably would be the fastest, you guys. And then the fastest people that would have time to respond quicker would be Brenda or Nora, either one of those. But you can email Paige, you can email me, you can call us. We are absolutely here to help you.
Yeah, I do want to shout out to the division team. Thank you, Candace Gonzalez, for posting Brenda's email address in there. You're an amazing team when those of you who are out in the field are helping us try to respond to these requests on the call. So I do thank you for that. And I have put Brenda's phone number and email address in there. And Allison, thank you for noting her phone probably is going to be blowing up after this call. But I know Brenda can handle that. Brandy has put the low income application in the chat box and where to go for that. So for the family, you will have to resubmit for low income. You will have to submit an application for low income. Brandy, if there's information that we have, for example, the birth certificate and other documents, we don't necessarily have to have, but you would have to resubmit, and that application is completely different. So any items that have been submitted, we have. Proof of residence, the birth certificate, but all of the income information that we didn't collect will be required. So I think, Takita, just to make sure your families, follow that application. If there's something on there that they've submitted, then we have that on file. But Brandy, if you want to post something in the chat box about that. Yeah, Cassidy, I think I really appreciate, and that's why I made the comment about the provisional requirements. We will reach out to our Fed partners. I do think there's some things that people are doing during the pandemic, and this may be one that we will want to check on. I'm not saying they will approve it. I'm just saying we certainly will check on it. And I think you're absolutely right. It's certainly one that is getting a lot of traction here and does seem to need to be addressed. And we will keep you guys posted. So Lindsay, your question was that staff has the complete FBI and you've received maltreatment. They can work provisionally. So
on that one, I did respond to Lindsay. I do think that's one where we would need to check. We would need to check because it would be unusual to have FBI and maltreatment back, but not the criminal. So I asked her to go ahead and reach out to us, and that's true for any of you. If when you're looking, it looks like your state criminal is sought back, then please let us know about that one. That would be an unusual situation.
So if, Elaine, thank you. We do have some folks that are letting us know if essential vouchers are not being used. I think I've mentioned to you all that at one point I checked on the billing for essential vouchers and we had almost $1 million of unbilled. So if you know someone's not going to use their essential vouchers, yes, it is very critical that we know that. I'm not saying it will change the end date, because if we don't have adequate funding for all of the families, it's not fair for me to start handpicking which ones are going to continue beyond that. But it would put money probably back into the deep cleaning pot of funding, or it might be, we might be able to get enough to do one more PPE payment. So yes, we will definitely put it back in the buckets and figure out what we can do with that. I'm not sure. It takes a lot to take care of all the 6,000 plus vouchers that we have on essential. It will take a lot of money to be able to extend those beyond December 31st. So I'm just letting you guys know that, but we could put that money back into the PPE or into the deep cleaning. So it just depends on the amounts, and we're tracking that. Right now, we haven't had a lot returned, but we have had a few people let us know that it's not going to be used. Thanks all of you for putting in your comments about, I know this is difficult on the background checks, but I do appreciate your positivity about it. But we will definitely be talking to our partners to see if there's any other ideas or ways that we can manage this during the pandemic. Supplemental payments for October. As far as I know, those supplemental payments for low income have been processed. Courtney, Brandy, is that correct? I saw payments being processed when our last call occurred. They were processing the next payment. So if you can post that in, I'm not sure where we are with that, but I do know that they were processing. We were, I think we were probably at least 2 weeks behind at that point. So
Payments are being processed now.
okay, all right. So we are processing October payments and any additional payments that are required. So Robin, on the $150 background check invoices from INA, NIC, you submit that to INA receipts at dhs.arkansas.gov. That's in the chat box, but that is the email address for those. And I see that somebody responded. Thank you. I'm just trying to go down and make sure I don't miss anything. And I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but we've got quite a few messages, so I'm going to keep going through these, gang. Just be patient. Lots of questions about background checks. We've talked about that. Ashlyn, we will be scheduling a training. So if you can work with Nora, and we'll get something scheduled for those of you that may need additional training on background checks. I know this is a big change, but we'll do both the INA training, that portal, or INA NIC. We will also do the child maltreatment. I know we've done both of those on this call, but we will do a repeat and we will do a separate training for that. And we'll post it on the website. So if you have any colleagues, we'll try to get it out. But I know everybody is not, since it's a stressful time, many people don't pay attention to emails. So if you can help us get that out, Child Care Aware folks who are on and other contractors, please get that word out. We will try to schedule a date. Maybe, I'm trying to think, you know, we can probably do a couple, but at least I'm thinking after Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, like maybe that first week of December, we could do that. I'm not sure next week with the holidays coming up, you know, if you guys feel differently about that, please put it in the chat box. I'm just trying to be sensitive to the timing, but we will schedule a training and we'll do it during the lunch hour. We'll do like a 12, maybe an 11 to 1 or something in the middle of the day. That might be better. Yeah, Robin, just so you know, and just a reminder to everyone, once we get past some additional changes in the background check system, there will be an opportunity for providers to pay for those background checks, not the way we're doing it now with the $150 subscription. You'll be able to pay the amounts the way you probably did similarly in Michigan. I'm not sure it's the exact same system, but it is going to look a little bit different. That's going to be an option. It's just at a later date. We're working with INA, NIC on that, but I do want you to know that is coming. That's why we're doing this one-time reimbursement. So I think you guys, it should be a similar system as to what you had in your other state. And for those of you, thank you, Allison. It does not sound like you're complaining. They're very real issues, and we know that, as we have many, many real issues here. It is very stressful for all of us. So we appreciate your honesty, and we want to help you. And so you've been very honest today. Some of you, it look like you may have very specific things. Pam, it looks like you've got something missing on background checks from September. Ashlyn, if we can reach out to Pam Anderson, it looks like she has a very specific thing. So if families are eligible, Ms. Jackson, and they get their applications in, like those should be coming in now. If we wait until December 31st, they will not probably get keyed. But if they start sending in their low income applications now and they meet the income criteria, then we will get them switched over. We will end date their current one and key them for going forward. So we have lots of providers who are trying to do that with their families. So yes, have them go ahead and do the applications. We will not know until we're able to look at their income and determine if they are eligible for low income, but definitely get them in. The sooner you get them in, as you can imagine, there are people here who have earned leave and they will not be here during the holidays at some point. So the sooner we can start keying those, the better it is for families. Jennifer, on your closed the week of Thanksgiving and will not be billing. If you'll just, I've noted that, Brandy, but if you'll send that to Brandy Ishman or someone in the child care assistance unit, they can make a note of that. So Kelly, Ashlyn, there's a comment from C. Greenlee. When will ratio in school agers and preschool go back as before? If we're talking about something that's because of the pandemic, it will not go away until the pandemic is declared by the governor as over, I presume. But if you guys want to take a stab at that.
Yeah, just remember ratios did not change because of the pandemic, only group sizes changed. So the group size requirements will be in place, as Tanya said. We're taking that guidance from the Department of Health, so that may be a while from the looks of the pandemic, but the ratios did not change.
I noticed we have Kayla Miller from CAPCA who's asking to be added so that she will get the notice about the background check training. So yes, Kayla will make sure. Watch our website too. I know somebody noted earlier, the website has changed. That was a state government change. That's not a DHS or Division of Child Care. We all had to change our websites to be more consistent. So it's been a long time coming. I apologize. I know it's hard to navigate something new. It's hard for us as well, but we are under a requirement for this new background check, for the new DHS website. So when you go to our division's website, it does look different. And if we need to do some training, we can include that on one of the calls, just a walkthrough so that you can know how to find things and have our comms team, communications team on to walk you through. There was a process for that. And I know Brandy's put in notes about the low income vouchers. There's a comment about the group size does that affect ratios? Kelly, I don't know if you want that from Kim Salerno.
So for instance, if you have in a room and that room, normally you would have maybe one staff with 18 students. You could still have that if you kept them separate, kept the group in groups of 10, if you had a way to do that in that room, where the teacher would be able to supervise and float between both groups. That's kind of how we've explained it in the past. Does that, you think, help answer that?
Thanks, Kelly, for that explanation. Hopefully that helps. If not, please reach out to your licensing staff. We're happy to help with that. I know that was confusing. I do want to go back. Elizabeth, you had sent a note, and thank you for that. It really, she sent it to me privately, but I do want to share this just about when the essential worker vouchers run out. If those are low income families, if you think those are low income families, please have them fill out a low income voucher. We do have funding for low income families. And if we don't keep paying supplemental, we can serve those families. That's the reason we have to quit paying the supplemental in December. We just can't keep paying that in order to serve low income families. We got to have funding for that. So, and I can't pay for high income families. That is a federal law. So if you think you have low income families that are really eligible for childcare, then please have them submit, and we can get those into facilities. It's an important concern that I do not have a crystal ball, guys, about what's going to happen tomorrow, a month from now, 2 months from now. But I can tell you, if these numbers keep going the way they're going, we're just going to be sitting at home alone. It's a very serious situation. So we all just have to keep doing what we need to do to be safe. But I don't know how families are going to respond to any of this. I can't make them bring their children to childcare if they don't want to bring their children and pay. I can't make them do that. I can't pay for those families that are over income. I can only pay for the ones that are eligible for our services. I think those of you who are doing advocacy work or who have an interest in that should work together. I think you do need to understand the laws and the rules surrounding the funding that we have. That doesn't mean you can't ask for other funding. It also doesn't mean you're going to get it, because it is a very, very difficult time for all businesses. I think this one's the most important because this is where my heart and head has always been. But I can tell you the hospitality industry, restaurants and hotels, those people are crying and hurting too. So there's so many people impacted. The health industry, if we keep having these cases, the lag about hospitalization. So in 2 weeks, our hospitals are probably going to be at an all-time high, because the lag for what's happening right now with all these positives is in 2 weeks, the hospitalizations and deaths follow. So it is such a serious matter, and the government can't subsidize every business. We can only do so much. So I appreciate all of your concerns. We spent every penny, all $30.2 million of the CARES funding has gone directly to the field. Not a penny of that was kept in this division. Not one single penny. All of it went to the field. And we will continue to pay until we reach that 41 million. And then that's it. If Congress doesn't allocate additional money for childcare during COVID. And I think, there's a lot happening federally right now. So we're just having to wait and see what's going to happen, unfortunately. Maybe there will be some quick decisions made at some point about additional allocations. Our state legislature will begin in January, but I can tell you after budget hearings, I'm not aware. I did not get the impression, my division is not asking, the discussions were really about cutting people and programs, quite frankly. So my funding is federal, which is the benefit for our field. We're not necessarily, they just could say we're not going to accept the federal money, but it doesn't cost the state to do some of the things that we do because it's all federal. But I just want you guys to be aware of that. I do want you to be aware, and I'm happy to send it out, put it on our website. There is funding for programs that serve, and I did send it to Child Care Aware and to our contractors last week. There are some grant funds available for programs that serve really low-income families and minority families. That is through the CARES Act. It's not my division. I don't have anything to do with it. If you don't like the application process, I cannot help you with that. but I can make sure that you're aware, and I encourage all of you that are serving low-income populations to consider writing. I don't know how much money you can write for. That's coming out of other parts of state government, but there are other places that has CARES funding. But I was thinking this morning when I was coming back from the Capitol that it might be something that you all could write for PPE equipment, for example. I don't think it's huge amounts of money, but it might help pay for some PPE equipment, cleaning equipment, if you feel like that's an area that you need it. And I'll be happy to put that on our division's website or try to get the link out to you guys so that you can see where to apply. I think you have through, there's a window, but I did send it out to Child Care Aware. So please reach out to your Child Care Aware. This should be a local thing. And I'll try to get something out too. But it's not my division. So I just need you to be aware that I can't help you with the application. There probably are instructions and who you can reach out to, but it has nothing to do with the Division of Child Care. It's just where I see an opportunity possibly for you to access funding. That's for those of you who are serving low-income families. So, and it is through the CARES Act, I think, through other parts of state government. Okay, gang, we've gone over a few minutes. I think we're going to end here, gang. I know there's a few other things in there, most of them, and most people have responded back. So I appreciate that. I just want to say to all of you in this field, the fact that we have the numbers that we have, 488 children and 767 staff, that sounds like a lot. But if you think about from March through November, through today's date, that's how many people, and that you all can serve, and it's varied from the whole time, but your capacity today is 160,000, that only, 1,200 roughly have been tested positive. That is such a huge testament to the work that you're doing out there and trying to keep people and your staff and your families and your children safe. So I just would be remiss to not say thank you for all that you're doing during this very difficult, very challenging time. We are all in it together. We really, truly are. And we're all struggling with different issues and challenges. I too do not like all of the answers I get when I ask federally or for things that I think should happen. I don't always like the answer, but we will continue to advocate for what we think is right. If additional funding gets allocated, I can assure you it will go directly to the field, just like this 41 million that we've received has gone strictly to the field. We will continue to advocate and try to get resources to you. So thank you guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. I think it will be after Thanksgiving. So be grateful, be thankful, happy Thanksgiving, and really be safe out there. See you next time.